Thank you for joining me today in a segment about writing. For those of you who don't know, I have been working on a novel, probably a series, since 2006, 2007. I took a fictional writing workshop as part of my creative writing minor. During one of the sessions, one of my peers read a story that they were working on that meshed The Three Little Pigs and Little Red Riding Hood, the connection being the Big Bad Wolf. And I thought to myself, that's awfully clever. And if I were to take any two stories, which two would I want to combine? Now, I won't talk too much about the story itself, but I will tell you that I decided to combine Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice with Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Oddly enough, they both happen to have been published in the 1800s. They were also set in the 1800s, give or take 52 years. It began as a first-person dialogue for a character named Liz. I set the opening scene in a field where she comes across a white rabbit. I wrote about 2-3 pages before I stopped because I didn't know where I was going with it. The more I thought about the story, the more dialogue I created for it, and I thought to myself, well, maybe I should make it a screenplay instead of a novel. And after about 100 pages of screenplay, I decided I hated that idea. I focused on descriptions of clothing, setting, emotions, and I made it third person instead of first person. Of course, most of my notes are on the computer and backed up on Google Drive, the cloud, you name it. I would just die if anything happened to the story. If I lost it and had to start, I wouldn't start over from scratch. I would be absolutely devastated. This has been my baby for almost 15 years. Now, aside from having everything on my computer, I do have journals and notebooks full of conversations, scenes, inner dialogue, translations from a language that some of the characters use, and various research drawings. Film shots from when I was going to make it a screenplay. I have a character list. My character list is falling through the roof now. And this is the birth of the Mad Hatter hat drawing that I so frequently sketch almost any and everywhere I go. And I wrote updated once I put it into the computer, so it helped me to know if I did actually update the story or not. This is the second one I started to use. I didn't get very far. On the first page is where I started to write down places within the world of my story. Things like what the world was actually called and names for the 7 kingdoms, what they mean, and cities that they're in, names to keep in mind. I wrote down 5 names, and the first one is actually going to be one of my favorite characters in one of the later books. Wonderland creatures. So this is where I did the research on what creatures live in Wonderland. Research is a big part of writing. After writing the first 2 pages of the first person narrative, I decided I needed to refresh my memory on Alice in Wonderland as well as Pride and Prejudice. And the only personal piece of research that I had available to me at the time was a script that I had from when I was in a production of Alice in Wonderland. I was the Queen of Hearts. Is anybody surprised? As you can see, it's falling apart and is really discolored. No, it was not falling apart during the use of it in production. There's a lot of writing and highlights, some of which aren't from my lines. My lines were in yellow, but any other highlights are for my research for the story. I eventually got a book. It's currently in New Hampshire. and that has a bunch of tabs and note cards in it, kind of like this one has note cards. You can see where I've highlighted sections of it. I decided to buy myself a new copy, and here are all my notes. Now, with all the notes that I have on loose leaf and in the journals and other notebooks, various other notebooks, I put them into a Microsoft Word document. The first document is 382 pages of actual story. The second document is 248 pages of just notes. I have a third document that I use to extract the notes from my note document and put them in chronological order, flesh them out, and insert them into the actual story. To help me put those over 200 pages of notes into chronological order, I have resorted to using note cards. So it either has the start of the scene or a number of quotes from the scene. And how I get these to be in order is by using poster board. This is actually the last of 3 or 4 poster boards for the first part of my story. Because I'm not going to keep the poster boards around, they take up too much space, I'm removing the index cards, putting them in order, and I've started stapling and taping them into this new notebook. And this will be my go-to for figuring out what conversations I've already had among characters, scenes that have already taken place, and hopefully that will keep me from having any continuity errors. Color coding is a big thing for me. You may have noticed that some of the index cards have green, maroon, or blue at the top, and that's just a quick reference to help me know which character is the focus of that scene. If you recall this earlier, I color coded my tabs here. The pink ones are to remind me where I wanted to separate the story. The blue notes are for the first part of the story, and I used blue note cards on the poster board to indicate the chapter of the book where I could find the conversation that I wanted to take and put into my own story. The green is the second part, and I'll do the same with the green note cards and the same with the orange when I get to it. I try to do activities that help me stay in the world of my book. I could get lost on Pinterest for hours just pinning aesthetics for characters, places, very specific settings like the tea party or a masquerade ball. And while I do that, I listen to an inspiration playlist. The songs on the playlist either inspire a particular emotion in a character or a scene between characters. Another thing I did very early on was draw out a map of my world so I knew where things were in relation to everything else. Maps come in really handy when your character is in a fork in the road and she can either go to the White Kingdom or the Red Kingdom. One is south, one is north. And from this map, I went to this map. And I was really happy with this map until I was writing a couple years ago and found my character traveling and coming across a new town. So from this map, I moved to this map that I won't be coloring in anytime soon. And on this map is where I make any town location adjustments, or if any of the characters come across a town or village or city that I wasn't aware existed until that exact moment. So those are just a few things that help me to write and to fight writer's block. If you want to learn more about the actual plot to my story, then go ahead and like my page on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Katie Lane Harrison. On that page, you can also find photo albums for more research, such as wardrobe for my characters, locations within my world, and even creatures that either pre-existed or that I've created on my own. Now, I know you've all seen this board if you've watched my other Katie Korner videos, and today it reads Let's Write. Let's Write is a Facebook group that I started a little over a year ago, and the purpose of it was to bring writers, aspiring authors, or even published ones, whether or not they were writing fiction, nonfiction, poetry, comics, graphic novels, fan fiction. Really, it's for anyone who likes to write, really enjoys writing, whether you want to eventually be published or maybe you just want to be better at writing. We have daily posts such as Soundtrack Sunday, Motivation Monday, Tips and Tricks Tuesdays. We also have Writing Prompt Wednesdays, Thesaurus Thursday, Feedback Friday, and Substitution Saturday. If that sounds like something you might be interested in, please go ahead and check us out on Facebook. We're the Let's Write group. And that's all for this crazy edition of Katie's Korner. Until next time, I've been me, you've been you, and this has been a lot of work. If you like this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Make sure that you share it with your friends and family. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. And subscribe to my channel. Please. Please, please. Pretty please. Thank you.